entrepreneurs, companies doing good and well, startups, and women who mean business. A former championship basketball star at Texas State, she inspires athletes of all ages. Fran Harris is a WNBA champion with the Houston Comets and former Procter and Gamble sales executive and a 21-year Fortune 100 speaker, trainer, coach, and consultant. Refuses to be a slave to the dollar bill, but instead helps companies play at a higher level by committing to epic levels of transparency, service, and appreciation for its customers and employees. Ladies, the virtual podium is yours. Each of you, please begin by starting out describing why you took a turn to establishing and supporting businesses, say, as opposed to being lawyers, nurses, or airline pilots.
I'm not sure where to start. I'm going to let you go first because that's a great question.
Well, I've already been talking for a little bit, but it's great to have you. It's great to see you, Fran, and thank you for the question. First and foremost, I would probably say I am a scientist and not a business person or an entrepreneur necessarily in my own right. My career has been shaped by research that I do, and in my research lab, we focus on the development of low-cost, point-of-care medical devices to detect and diagnose disease. These systems inherently have real-world applications, and it's been the drive to be able to see the things that we develop in the lab get into the hands of people where it'll truly change and save lives. So it's been that connection for taking the research and ensuring that there is a commercialization, a tech transfer, and a collaborative involvement with startup companies that can make and bring those things to life.
Yeah, for me, first of all, great to be here with everybody this morning. For me, it really was because I had numerous ideas. There's, if you've got 20 ideas in about 20 seconds and you're working for someone, it's kind of hard to maintain your survival. And that's really where I found myself working for a great company with Procter & Gamble as soon as I was, out of college at Texas. And then realized that if I were going to ever be able to exploit any of these ideas that I had, any of these innovations, that I had to strike out on my own. And that's really, what it came down to. You mentioned the snow cone stand when I was 9. What most people don't know is that wasn't just because I was entrepreneurial. It was because my mother wouldn't buy me something and told me that I needed to actually figure out how to get the money myself. And thus an entrepreneur was born.
I love that. In terms of an entrepreneur being born, it's often out of need and a direct connection to that need. And the way to solve it is by, creating your own avenues and creating your own opportunities and being able to recognize those. I 100% agree and love that concept.
What's interesting about the idea of striking out on your own is that everybody thinks entrepreneurship is so glamorous and they think it's so amazing because they are focusing on the freedom that you have. And while that's absolutely amazing, there are a lot of twists and turns and, dark roads and highlights and lowlights that you have to go through and endure in order to ultimately get there. But I think what really drives a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit is it's the ultimate expression of freedom, whether that's financial freedom or whether that's just creative freedom. And for me, I wasn't driven so much in terms of the money early on. I was driven by the fact that I wouldn't have to be a slave to my alarm clock, that the ceiling for innovation and the ceiling for income and impact would become limitless. And I think that's very common and consistent with a lot of entrepreneurs.
The path is definitely a winding road. Can you tell me a little bit about one of those, what would you have liked to have known now that you, or then that you do know now?
I think entrepreneurship is sold as this ultimate, as I said, this ultimate freedom. What I would have liked to have known then was the value of having a great team around you, because there's a lot of isolation and loneliness that starts when you start a company, unless you start with a co-founder. A lot of entrepreneurs start by themselves in their garage, as you mentioned with Apple, one day in their car, just kind of thinking about needs in the marketplace. And so the value of a team, I didn't learn that until later. And to some degree wish that I had, when I started my consulting company after I left P&G, that I had a co-founder, because whether it's bouncing ideas off or just getting through some of the lean years and the tough times that you have, it's a lot easier to do that if someone's traveling on the journey with you. So the value of a team, highly recommend, whether it's your board or just a mastermind group. If you're a solo founder, get some folks around you because you will need that support.
You are a master at teams. Tell me a little bit about how do you pick the people you need and the ones that you want to be on your team?
That comes a lot from my basketball experience. I didn't actually start playing basketball until I was 15 years old in Dallas. And then I got the opportunity to be on a scholarship at the University of Texas. And one of the great things about my career is people always say, well, you were a superstar, you were this. Now, I always say I was always on great teams. I understood the importance of great teams, and that's specifically from playing from a championship team in high school, and then playing on a championship team at the University of Texas, and then playing on the championship team again in the WNBA. I clearly saw that it's a lot easier to elevate goals and to reach your dreams and to be very mission centered if you're surrounded by greatness. And so for me, during my athletic career, it was never the most important thing for me was never to be necessarily the best player on the team. Even when I was the best player on the team, what was important for me was to be surrounded by greatness every day, so that I had to be pushed beyond my limits, so that I couldn't rest on my laurels and become complacent. So when you're looking for choosing teammates, the first thing that comes to my mind is going to be values, is an alignment of values. And a lot of people talk about alignment these days. They talk about values, but getting those values to be aligned with the people that you're going to be in the trenches with every day is critical. You can like people, you can love people, but if your values are not aligned, if the things that matter most are not similar, it's going to be a very difficult partnership.
That's definitely really good advice. When I completely understand, when, especially in a startup, when you are together and working so hard, so closely,
yes.
That communication and that alignment is very critical. So tell me about what the current activities, and where do you get inspired from?
I get inspired a lot from just seeing, from other people doing the thing, as we say in sports. You did the thing. I love watching entrepreneurs who are solving new problems. Remember the old adage, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Everybody goes, everything has been done. And we're seeing it really hasn't. There's a twist. There's a different way to do different things, even if the invention or the innovation has been there for the past 100 years. There's always something new that you can do. So I'm always inspired by seeing great, people do great things. For me, this sounds interesting for most people because I've been an athlete most of my life, and I just started a beverage company that our first line of innovation are sports drinks. And so people usually go, why are you just now thinking about this? And it's really interesting because you look at the innovation in the sports drink category, and I started the company because of a need. I didn't see something that was low sugar, great tasting, higher functionality, better for you. If you think about how long the sports drink category has been in existence, there hasn't been a lot of innovation in that category for over 50 years. And it really came out of a need from me participating in a 5K, and someone handed me at the finish line, they handed me a sports drink, and I turned it around and I was like, what is this? Now, that's weird because I played sports all my life, right? And so I'm looking at that and I go, let's see if there's something there. So I was literally inspired by what I perceived to be missing in the marketplace. And I also believe that's true for a lot of entrepreneurs. It was missing. Is this something that I can add? Can I make a greater contribution to my community? And let's see what's there. And so we set out to start a company that was a better for you functional beverage company. And we're on a roll. We're entering our first year of business. And so far, so good.
Always great to celebrate accomplishments and cheer you on.
Yeah, small wins are very important. I'm a big proponent of celebrating very small victories. So, and there have been a lot of those during this pandemic.
Certainly. Can you also talk a little bit about being a woman and in a typically male-dominated world and fields, as well as some of the challenges that poses, and how you certainly have overcome them?
People tend to start thinking about, the Good Old Boys Club, and does it still exist? Does a glass ceiling? Is it still there? And it absolutely is. But one of the things that we don't hear a lot of conversation about is the level of conditioning that surrounds women who are in male-dominated fields, or in life and business in general. So part of the challenges of being in sports and sports casting and being in sales and now in sports drinks, sports beverages, which is a truly dominated, predominantly dominated by men, is that there's a lot of conditioning with men about whether they should respect women, whether they should listen to women when they're speaking. And that, for me, is the most challenging thing, the conditioning and the imprinting in the space. It's not about whether I believe women can do it or I can do it. It's extra stuff that you have to do just to be in the room and not strangle someone. Let's just be honest, because people are speaking over you, or they're dismissing your ideas, or they're deflecting, what the real issues are. There's a lot of extra stuff that women have to go through, regardless of the industry that they're in, that has nothing to do with their ability to really excel in the field. And for me, it has been the conditioning of both women and men in the space that's been the most challenging. I've never run up against a physical challenge, an intellectual challenge that I didn't feel up to par. It's all the extra stuff, all the potential, dismissiveness that you get, the potential lack of opportunities that are not there. Because I believe once women get in the room, they can hold their own.
Certainly, and also at the board table.
Absolutely.
I 100% agree. Since I come from a university point of view and a university perspective, were there any opportunities for you throughout your academic career to engage with entrepreneurial learning, or where do you think you got most of that training from? And what would you like to receive?
Yeah, so my dad started his own ceramic tile business when I was younger. And then my mother, a year or so before she died, started her own beauty salon. So there was entrepreneurship in my family. And I also always saw my older brothers going out with my dad, putting flyers on cars for his business. So the seed was planted. I don't think we talked about the word entrepreneurship. That wasn't discussed. It was doing whatever you needed to do to put food on the table, to put clothes on our backs. So that was the planting of the seed. And then my brother actually bought me a subscription to Black Enterprise magazine, which was the premier Black business magazine in the country, started in, I believe, the 70s. So that planted yet another seed. And then when I got to high school, I remember, this may not be entrepreneurship, but I think it tells you a little bit of something about me. When I got to middle school, I was bored in one of my classes, and me and my classmates started playing cards. And we started playing cards, and we started playing cards for money. Let's just be real. We were playing cards for cards and, dollars or whatever. And I didn't come from a rich family, so my lunch money was all the money I had. But I started getting really intrigued by the strategic thinking and playing cards and the risk taking. And I remember I was playing with a friend, and the bell was about to ring, and she had a $13 lead on me. And I said, let's play one more. And she was like, the bell is about to ring. I was like, no, one more. Let's play one more. All or nothing. Now, let me tell you, I didn't have $13 more to give her, but I was so confident that I was going to win that game before the bell rung. And I said, do it. She goes, you owe me $13 already. I got it. So this will be $26. I got it. Don't worry about it. So we played this hand, and I won. I was like, victory! That tells you a lot about just my mentality. Is I'm a very high risk taker, and I was going to get in big time trouble if my mother found out, first of all, that I was gambling, and second of all, that I would have to come up with another $13. But I never forgot that story, because it's really the imprint of who I am as an entrepreneur. I roll the dice. I am a high stakes player. I bet on me, and I've been doing this since I was 13 years old. So there you go.
That is a fantastic story, although, trying not to advocate here for childhood gambling
No.
or anything like that.
Don't do that, children. Don't do it.
But the idea of gambling on yourself and gambling on, and not necessarily, putting that faith in people. And when it's not necessarily a gamble, when you structure it in a way that you can minimize those risks.
Yes.
You can take small risks, you can test them, and then change your pathway if necessary, or change your hypothesis or what direction you're coming from. And so I've seen, as I've gotten more and more into an understanding of an entrepreneurial mindset and of entrepreneurial learning, that there are methods to be able to test and minimize that risk. It's where entrepreneurship is not just throwing the dice and gambling,
yes,
but you're actually placing very calculated risks and being able to test them on an ongoing basis so that the big risk, is actually minimized.
Absolutely. And I mean, to your point, it's betting on you. In that card game, I literally was betting on me and understanding my talents, my abilities, but also I'd already thought through, okay, so I get this amount of money every week. Well, by next Wednesday, I will be able to get her money. So it wasn't like I was betting my house. I mean, and although there's nothing wrong with that, I have known lots of friends who have literally mortgaged their homes and done all kinds of things that most people would think are crazy, and that it paid off, because in the end, I bet on me. And I believe in my abilities. And I think that is the most important quality of an entrepreneur is understanding, yes, I know what's at stake. I've kind of paid attention to that. I have a checklist of all I could lose, but look at all that I can gain when I take this leap and when I bet. If it's money, we can replace money. Honestly, if it's a house, we can replace a house. If it's a car, we can replace a car. But you won't get back those years that you lost, in a sense, if you never take any risks, if you never go for anything. And that's the thing that's always consistent in my message is go for it. If you have to go for it on a part-time basis, go for it until you feel more comfortable going for it on a full-time basis. That's
just certainly good advice. And I'm curious to know your early thought processes around, do you work with, or have you had any true mentors that have helped you through your career or in different points in your career, and how you found those mentors or sought out their help?
Absolutely. I mean, even when there was no team around me, I've always had great mentors, and I've always sat at the feet and around the fire of people who were, first of all, amazing people, because that's always been the most important thing for me. Just being able to absorb the wisdom of good people. And then fortunately, on top of that, they were great at whatever they did, whether it was community service or philanthropy or business. Some of my early mentors were very accomplished folks who were like chairmen of the boards of Dell Computers, and just people that I didn't realize that the value that they were bringing me at 24, 25, I would still be tapping into those things at 45 and beyond. So for me, that's like number two. Like, you can get a great team, great, but if you can't get a great team, make sure you surround yourself with mentors who are going to tell you exactly what you need to know, not necessarily what you want to hear. And I've had those all my life. And two of them I can think about. One is in the business arena, a guy by the name of Lee Walker, who was there early when I started my company after I left Procter & Gamble, and just talking to someone and understanding how to access capital and how investors think was invaluable to me. So I thank Lee for that, and Jen, his wife, for that, because they were amazing at putting me at the table of other entrepreneurs, getting the opportunity to really get elevated business education when I was just in my mid-20s. And then the second mentor who's been there, I'm also a writer, so I wrote my first screenplay probably 20 years ago. And I remember being at the Austin Film Festival around the table with a guy by the name of Bill Broyles, who wrote what do you call it? Unfaithful and Apollo 12 and, just Apollo 13 or one of those numbers. Remember one of those numbers Bill wrote. But I remember being at the table with him, and we were going around the table. It's like a little, laser coaching thing. And he's asking everyone, what are you working on? What are you writing? And so when he got to me, I was telling him I was writing a screenplay called Loose Balls. And he just became really intrigued. He said, you should be writing. That's your first script should be what you're doing, which is writing about what you know a lot about. So whether that's your life story, it goes for you, that's a very intriguing basketball story. So you should write that. And it just really stuck with me, the thought of the things that are really near and dear to you, something can be done with them. Maybe they won't be a full-fledged business. Maybe they will be a side hustle. Maybe they will be a book or whatever. But I always remembered him saying, never forget the things that are natural for you. Never forget the things that are already intrinsically a part of your story, because that's where your gold is. And he was right.
That connects up to doing things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And letting that passion drive you and drive your interests and where you ultimately go from there.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Do you have any, I've always found in terms of the mentoring capacity, so in science, going through my academic career, there are very structured systems for advising and mentoring. But as I, finished in terms of a postdoc, I started looking to certain people and thinking and not always having a defined mentor, but being able to see things that I admired and things that I wanted to be, like behaviors that I wanted to, were good examples to me. Picking those from different places and having a very diverse perspective and a diverse, group of them. Mm-hmm. And as scientists, we tend to kind of stick into our own fields sometimes. And I think that that's also part of why I've gotten involved in doing more innovation and entrepreneurship, getting out of that, because I do enjoy the collaborations that cross over disciplines and get you outside of that comfort zone. Right. Every once in a while. And while, there's your home, group of things that you're really good at and where your passion is driving you, exposing yourself to some new ideas and new things that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of initially or thought you would be good at initially.
Yeah. Well, I think it was great about this event that we're on right now. In addition to that is bringing in the total wellness of the entrepreneur. Because as you know, when you're running a company, when you're an entrepreneur and you're so focused on P&L statements and, business models and KPIs and all those other acronyms that we use on a daily basis, you forget about the whole person. Sometimes you forget that your mental health is the most important thing. It's right up there with your physical health. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are great at business, but have forgotten that their body, soul, and spirit needs attention as well. And what I love most about this particular event that we're both a part of is that there's a focus on take care of your mental health. Children, I have had a lot of therapy, and trust me, it was a well worth the investment. I go walking every day because I know that if my head and my heart are not where they need to be, I'm not going to be a very good leader and I'm not going to be a very good CEO. And so I say those things not as, kind of parenthetical, but more like that is very real. You will kill yourself with just working. You will kill yourself with only paying attention to what happens at the office. So live a little. In fact, my philosophy is to live a lot. Live a lot, watch Netflix, spend time with your friends and family. And, for someone I lost my mom very early. I learned that lesson very early. Like, tomorrow is truly not promised. So be great at business. I'm all about the greatness. Be great at business, be great at relationships as well. And definitely take care of yourself and be good to yourself.
That's excellent advice. Some that I think I sometimes need to take myself. Going for a walk, going for a run is one of my best stress relief tactics. Mm-hmm. My husband just the other day said, you need to go get your shoes and go for a run.
There you go.
Exactly. Well, this is wonderful. In terms of the family support, you mentioned your mother and how your your dad and your brothers were all incredibly supportive of your entrepreneurial activities. Can you talk a little bit about the need for that support system and how, those personal relationships really factor into success as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I was born into a great family. We're not a perfect family, but we're great when it comes to supporting each other. So I have three brothers. One of them has, passed away, and a sister, and my dad is still alive. And everybody, the excitement that we have for each other, whatever we're doing is truly phenomenal. And I feel really grateful to be able to do that. We have weekly calls and sometimes bi-weekly calls, depending on, how tired we are of each other, but where we just check in with each other. What are you working on? What are you doing? I don't know a lot of families that do that. And we do that because we're intentional about the love that we have for each other. We're intentional about supporting each other. So that's been great. But I also want to say, if you don't have that as a family, you make your family. Trust me, if my family sucked, I would go and make my family with my friends, with people that I do business with, because I kind of have those relationships already with the people that I do business with. And I believe that is truly important, that you go and make your own family and get that support and give that support, because that's the fuel that I need for all the things that I want to accomplish before I shot my last jump shot. I need the support of the people around me. And I believe that they need the energy that I give them to keep going. I send texts to my families all the time, just keep going. Like, I don't know what's going on in your life, but keep going and reach out if you need help. And so hopefully you all have those kinds of relationships with the folks in your life as well.
That is an important thing to recognize, the give and take, and the two multiple pathways of exchange there. You need support, but you also give support in many different ways, and recognize when somebody is reaching out and help, giving you support. I think sometimes we can get lost a bit in our own bubble or world, and not even recognize when somebody is, knocking on the door that's saying, hey, I'm here to help, or I'd like to, get involved, and be able to take some of these things off your plate, those types of things. Well, this has been incredible. It has been wonderful to talk with you. You have an amazing experience, background. I know there's still only wonderful things to come from you. This will not be the last. The sports drink, when is it launching?
Yeah, it's ready. It's drinkable.
It's ready. It's there.
Yeah, you can get it at idrinkelectra.com, but it's ready. It's it truly is delicious. I feel like a parent who has children. Like, she really can talk. She really can walk. But no, it's amazing to just be in this space. But more importantly, so many folks, Shannon said, why would you go into the behemoths are going to kill you. Why would you go into a category where there's such established players? And I'm like, remember when there was only Coke and Pepsi? And then I just leave the conversation. Now, the soda aisle is ridiculous, and every category needs innovation. So I just want to stand and hold my flag and say, whatever you're thinking about doing, do your research, but do it anyway. Just the joy that you'll get from stepping out and believing in yourself is going to be amazing. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful last piece of advice. It was wonderful to talk to you. And I think we are pulling Ted back on.
Thank you, Dr. Shannon and Miss Harris. Wow, two powerhouse ladies to learn from.